So that is the fourth argument Narad is making in answer to the query of the queen. First he says, pain is the hammer of God, it is necessary pain. Then the sacrifice of the Supreme, Christ suffering, that is important to see. Then he is talking of hard in world redeemer's task. That is the third point he was making. The world redeemer comes here, his task is hard. Then the fourth point, what we have just seen, is don't take the Titan's path. Follow the psychic spiritual path. Now, the fifth point he is making in answer to the various points which were raised by the queen, he is talking now of, oh mortal who complains death and fate. Now he says here now, look, this is your choice by which you have come here and you are complaining. You need not have come here at all, you see. You would have been there happy and all that kind of a thing there. You had chosen this place because you became curious of something here. You thought that it is worthwhile exploring what is here. And you are complaining now. There is a purpose. In fact, this is a very significant point which Narad is making. And Shivandu has taken this as an occasion to what we have in great detail in the life divine. In the life divine, this particular part. Here the language is poetic language. There he is arguing for a rational mind. But here the perception is more intuitive, more immediate, more warm also, you see, than what you have in the life divine. You see. O mortal who complains of death and fate, you have been complaining about fate and death and all that. Accuse none of the harm thyself has caused. You are accusing, is this your God who has made this world? You are accusing him, but it is you who should accuse none of the harm thyself has caused. You have caused all the sin yourself. It was your choice. You need not have taken this path at all. This troubled world thou hast chosen for thy home. Thou art thyself the author of thy pain. You are the author of your pain. The authorship of pain is not with God. The authorship of pain is with us. It is because we have remained small. We have remained always on the surface consciousness, in the finite world, in ignorance. Therefore, it is we who have to accept pain. We are the author. And we have chosen that thing. Basically what it is, you did not have come here at all in this creation. Why? And then he elaborates this point. Thou art thyself the author. So the authorship of pain is you, we, not God. You see. The authorship of joy, of bliss, of ananda, that is God's. He is the author of joy. And now he elaborates what he has said in this stanza. O mortal who complains of death and fate, accuse none of the harm thyself has caused. This troubled world thou hast chosen for thy home. Thou art thyself the author of thy pain. And then he elaborates on that. Once in the immortal boundlessness of self, in the transcendent, in a vast of truth and consciousness and light, the soul looked out from its felicity. You are there in the transcendent, and you looked out from that high zone. Started serving all around, looking around, you see. Once in the immortal boundlessness of self. So, in other words, you are boundless, you are immortal, and you are looked out. We are looked out for what? For mortality, for bounds, for limits. You are looked out. You are looking for them. You are looking at them also. You are the vast of truth and consciousness and light. Basically, it means you are in Satchidananda. You are in the transcendent. Truth, Sat, Chit, light here stands for Ananda, Prakash. You see. You are there in the transcendent, in Satchidananda. See. The soul looked out from its felicity. You are happy there. Each individual soul was there. And then it felt the spirit's interminable bliss. Everywhere it saw bliss, 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 endless, 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 endless. It knew itself deathless, timeless, spaceless, one. It saw the eternal, lived in the infinite. I mean, you as a transcendental individual, you see, it is not the totality, it is not the infinite. It is the individual in the transcendent, the central being of ours, of the individual. It felt the spirit's interminable bliss. It knew itself death. Now he says it knew itself deathless. He doesn't say it knew itself immortal. He doesn't say eternal, infinite. He says deathless, timeless, spaceless. In other words, you are looking for death, you are looking for time, you are looking for space, you are looking for many, one. It saw the eternal, lived in the infinite. Then, curious of a shadow thrown by truth. This is the most beautiful line. What a sweet line. Then, curious of a shadow thrown by truth. So you are in the transcendent and it has cast a shadow here down below in the void. And you are wondering, what is the shadow there for? Why it is there? Is there something hidden behind the shadow? It became curious of that thing. It became curious of that. It is that curiosity which dragged him down. Then, curious of a shadow thrown by truth, he strained towards some otherness of self. Shadow, because there was light, you see shadow. What is it there? Otherness. There was deathlessness, there is death. There was timelessness, there is time. That is otherness. There was bliss, there is grief, pain. It strained towards some otherness of self. It was drawn to an unknown face, peering through night. Unknown face, peering through night. So it saw somebody sitting there behind his shadow, not visible, unknown. In other words, the soul, transcendent soul, it saw the Supreme Himself behind his shadow. Unknown face behind. He saw the Supreme Himself behind his shadow. Otherwise, how can the shadow be there? Basically, he saw him there. And naturally, it feels curious. It gets attracted by that unknown face, by the Supreme Himself. If the Supreme is there behind the shadow, then who is a danger for me? Let me go and plunge into the darkness, into the shadow. Let me see what it is then. I am safe there because the Supreme is there. He is there already. It was drawn to an unknown face, peering. It is looking up to the night. It sensed a negative infinity. Negative infinity. Now, basically, all those beautiful things, Sat, Chit, Ananda, power, light, beauty, joy, happiness, etc., they are opposites. That is the negative infinity. Sat becomes Asat. Chit becomes achitana. Ananda becomes dukkha, kashta, klesha, sorrow, suffering. Negative infinity and endless. If Satchidananda is infinite, here is the counterpart of Satchidananda himself behind his shadow spread like an infinity. In other words, if there are all the possibilities present in Satchidananda, the glorious possibility, those possibilities are also present here behind his shadow. That is the negative infinity of everything. In fact, we have got a line in Savitri, no? The inconscience is infinite. This is what we are saying. The inconscious is infinite. Because it is that which has really come down here. Now, this is the way Narada is explaining in the Puranas, in the mythological stories. The description is more picturesque. He says it is Vishnu himself who is residing in the darkness here. We have seen the pictures of Vishnu lying on a 1,000-hooded serpent, asleep. 1,000-hooded serpent, like couch, and is lying on that serpent. Now, it's a very, very vivid description of that. The Supreme Being himself has entered into the darkness, and the 1,000-hooded serpent is nothing but all his powers and energies which are coiled up on which he is sitting, on which he is sleeping. They had to wake up and come into operation. That is what the story would mean, the Puranic story, you see. 1,000-hooded serpent is very purposeful description that we see. All the energies are there present, and he is sleeping on that. Means he is not active, you see, in that sense, you see. So here, that is the negative infinity. Now, what we call that Vishnu, the inconscient Vishnu. He is nothing but the inconscient Vishnu in that state, inconscient Vishnu. The Purana will say Shesha. Shesha means serpent. Shesha Shahi. He is sleeping on the serpent couch. Shesha. Now what does Shesha mean? Serpent, of course. It also means the remnant, the exhausted. He has completely exhausted himself and now he is sleeping there. And he has become Shesha, void. What has remained is the void. So the word is etymologically significant of the story also, mathematically. Exhausted, fully emptied out. He has emptied himself out fully. And yet he is there. And that is the void, you see. In other words, all the divine qualities which are there in the transcendent, they have been fully absorbed and kept, so to say, under suspension. And they have to emerge now fully. Now, it is that thing which you saw from the transcendent. When you saw the shadow, you become curious of that. And then you said, let me see what it is, you see. Its sense and negative infinity, a void supernal whose immense excess, imitating God, yes, you see, all that thing which is there, he is imitating here now. And everlasting time offered a ground for nature's adverse birth, and matter's rigid and hard unconsciousness, harboring the brilliance of a transient soul, harboring the brilliance of a transient source. That lights of birth and death and ignorant life. Now, transient soul, here of course it means the surface consciousness, the ego personality. The ego personality. Pardon me? Harboring the brilliance of a transient soul. It means the surface consciousness, the ego consciousness, the outward nature. Not, he says transient, not the real soul, you see. It is that which has started working up. the ego consciousness. And matter's rigid, hard unconsciousness harboring the brilliance of a transient soul that lights up, it is that which goes on now, from birth and death and ignorance till life. It is that which is being carried out. And then, with that, what happened then? Mind rose, that started at nothing, that stared at nothingness. Until then, it was not aware of it. The moment mind appeared in the whole process, then it started wondering about all these things. Shunya, till figures formed of what could never be. It housed the contrary of all that is. So, everything which is opposite is there now with the arrival of mind. There was no question of evil and good before the appearance of mind. It is mind which started distinguishing between sin and virtue, good and evil, right and wrong. It is that we started seeing that thing, you see. Before that, there was no distinction, you see. A mind arose that stared at nothing till figures formed of what could never be. It how the contrary of all that is. And not appeared as being huge, sealed cause. Now, he is, of course, in one single line, simply summarizing the whole process. What was not there until now, in that something has appeared. And not. Not is a kind of a person, so to say, an entity. It is that which has appeared. And what is that? The being. The evolution, he is basically describing the whole process of evolution. It's a dumb support in a blank infinite. Unless that Vishnu is there in the inconscience cannot grow. He appeared there as a knot. Shesha. A knot appeared as being huge, a single cause. Its dumb support in a blank infinite, in whose abysm spirit must disappear. That is the separation from the divine. A darkened nature lived and held the seed. See, again here now, what we have got here is the being is there and nature. Everywhere we have got being and nature, presence and power. Presence and power. The divine Purusha and the divine Shakti in various places operating variously. And not appeared as beings huge, single cause, is a dumb support in a blank infinite. So, because he is there, in fact, that is what Mother says. No, when the separation took place and the void was seen, the horror of separation, when the Supreme saw, he plunged into it. You know what the Mother says? He plunged into the void, the Supreme. When the separation took place, he plunged into the void. He means, of course, which is Shakti, which is power. That is nature. Of spirit hidden and feigning not to be. See, he is feigning. Actually, he is there, but he is showing as if he is not there. Now, he is describing the whole process of separation. The eternal consciousness became the home of some unsouled, almighty inconscient. Consciousness has become inconscious. The story of separation, what the Mother has narrated, you see. Of some unsouled, almighty inconscient. One breathe no more the spirit's native air. The transcendent, now in the opposite. A stranger in the insentient universe, bliss was the incident of a mortal hour. So bliss turned into its opposite. He is giving an example of consciousness becoming inconscience. The four powers who separated. जी. Consciousness became inconscious. Bliss became its opposite, sorrow.